Bree Hall gone, Shea Petty gone, Natasha Howard gone, Bree Turner gone, Damster's gone. That's 5. Ariel Power, Sydney Colson. Hold on, Sydney Colson and Damster's 8. Yep, I believe they lose 8 players. This is just my prediction.
What you are about to hear is the real story the Indiana Fever never wanted to get out. Hours after their playoff dreams were shattered, the front office made a move so ruthless, so coldly calculated, that it sent shockwaves to the entire WNBA. 8 players, gone in one night. Teammates one moment, former employees the next. The entire basketball world was left scrambling, trying to figure out what could possibly justify such a drastic purge. Fans were in an uproar, insiders were blindsided, and rival executives were suddenly terrified of what Indiana was building. This wasn't just a simple roster shakeup. This was a declaration of war.
A lot of players will be exiting the building like Elvis, bruh. They got to get the hell out of Dodge. Now, I'm telling you right now, I believe more than half of this team is going to leave. I just got to keep it real. A lot of players is going to leave. I believe a few big names is probably going to leave. And more importantly, we need to get the ball.
This was the front office sending a message that they were done playing nice, done with mediocrity, and done with anything that stood in the way of their ultimate goal. So what on earth would push a franchise to clean house this fast? Was this a master plan, a rebuild they had been secretly designing for months? Or was it a panic move, a desperate reaction to a season that ended in disappointment? The truth, as we've uncovered, is far more shocking than anyone could have imagined. It's a story of clashing egos, a power struggle behind closed doors, and a financial revolution that changes everything. Before we dive into the stunning details, if you're fascinated by the real stories behind the sport headlines, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. What we're about to reveal will change how you see this franchise forever. The most common theory after the mass exodus was about performance. These players just weren't good enough, right? But that was only the surface level excuse. The real reason, sources close to the organization reveal, was a fundamental and irreparable clash of philosophies.
Predicted them to go this far, especially without Caitlin Clark. Now, granted, they was projected to be, final contenders, but that was with the roster that they had. Obviously, they had a whole nother roster, and like I keep telling y'all, momentum was to...
On one side was head coach Stephanie White, a believer in a structured, play-by-play system. On the other was a front office that had invested everything in a generational talent named Caitlin Clark, a player who became a national sensation by doing the exact opposite. Her game was built on freedom, on instinct, on a chaotic and fast-paced read and react offense that left defenders helpless. Internal meetings throughout the season became increasingly tense. The front office demanded an offense that let Clark be Clark, that unleash your logo threes and no-look passes. But Coach White, according to insiders, stubbornly defended her structured approach, arguing the team wasn't ready for that kind of freedom. The result was a superstar who looked frustrated and exhausted, trying to fit into a box she was never meant to be in.
No, Stephanie White was running a whole lot of sets, bro. Whole lot of sets, whole lot of off-ball things, whole lot of things that Caitlin Clark really don't like to do, bro. Let's just be honest. Caitlin Clark is being the biggest trooper for this damn basketball team, but I think, just like I stated before,
this wasn't just a disagreement over strategy. It was a battle for the soul of the franchise, and the release of those 8 players was the front office's way of choosing a side. They weren't just cutting players. They were cutting out an entire system. But the system clash was only part of the story. Behind the scenes, a quiet war was raging between the coaching staff and the front office. A conflict so intense it threatened to tear the entire organization apart from the inside out. The relationship, once a collaborative partnership built on a shared vision for a rebuild, had reportedly deteriorated into a tense, silent power struggle where every decision was a battle. Sources close to the team describe a growing chasm, with the front office increasingly viewing head coach Stephanie White not as a partner, but as an obstacle to their grand plan. The playoff elimination wasn't just a loss. It was a final, undeniable piece of evidence executives felt they needed. In their eyes, it was conclusive proof that Coach White's philosophy, her meticulous play-by-play structure, could not win when the pressure was at its absolute peak.
They was running this off ball and doing all these different experiments. Without momentum, I don't believe they would have made it as far. I believe They was playing meaningful basketball just due to the amount of injuries that the team took, and it kind of motivated them. They said it in their exit interview. The bench power pretty much motivated them and gave them the energy they need to prolong and get through a bunch of them long stretches.
This wasn't a matter of opinion anymore. It was a verdict. And the front office was ready to pass the sentence. The tension wasn't confined to front office. It seeped into the very fabric of the locker room, creating a palpable divide among the players. Some veterans, those who thrived on order and clear directives, supported the coach's structured discipline. They argued that in the chaos of a close game, you need a system to fall back on, a set of rules to create order. But on the other side were the younger players, and even Caitlin Clark herself, who privately chafed at what they felt was a micromanaged and robotic offense.
You know what Caitlin Clark had to say years ago?
A huge reason why I came here, and that's what she preached to me in the recruiting process. You know, you're going to have the ball in your hands a lot, and I think a lot of my final schools kind of had that same look, but I think the read and react offense that we run was super important for myself. You know, you're making basketball reads. It's not a set. You're not being told what to do every single time you come down the floor. You're just playing the game you love.
They spoke in hushed tones about feeling handcuffed, about their instincts being overruled by a scripted play. You could see this internal conflict playing out in real time on the court. The split-second hesitation in Clark's game as she second-guessed a pass. The quick, almost nervous glances she'd shoot toward the bench after a missed shot. The visible frustration when a natural fast break opportunity was deliberately slowed down to initiate a set play. The entire team's rhythm was being disrupted by this philosophical civil war.
The style of play, and this is what I've been saying, we need to go back to the basics. And the basic is this style of play with Caitlin Clark, giving her the ball. Let her play freely, openly. Let her do what she do. No calling different sets going up the court. No doing none of this. Put players around Caitlin with that know how to obviously resets, know their responsibility, because Caitlin Clark said it.
The front office, watching from their suites, saw a once-in-a-generation player being systematically held back, her explosive talent diluted by a system that prioritized control over creativity. They decided that the person calling the plays was as much of a problem as the players executing them. The release of those 8 players was therefore a brutal and multifaceted message. It was a message to the league that the Fever were all in. It was a message to the fans that change was here. But most importantly, it was a direct, unmistakable ultimatum to the head coach. Adapt to our new vision. Surrender your system and embrace this revolution, or you'll be the next one out the door, and your departure will be just as swift and unceremonious.
The Fever front office is about to do another roster overhaul for the 2026 WNBA season.
However, the most shocking piece of this puzzle had nothing to do with basketball strategy and everything to do with the cold, hard reality of money. This massive purge was, at its core, a brilliant and ruthless financial reset designed to position the franchise for a decade of dominance. By releasing 8 contracts in one devastating night, the Indiana Fever didn't just change their team, they liberated millions of dollars in precious salary cap space, effectively hitting the financial jackpot. Veterans like Natasha Howard and Aerial Powers, while talented, carried hefty price tags that consumed a massive portion of the team's total budget. The front office had grown increasingly frustrated, watching large portions of their financial resources be tied up in players who provided inconsistent returns on the court. It was like investing a fortune in a sports car that only started every other time you turned the key. This move was fundamentally about cutting dead weight from the balance sheet, a surgical strike on their own payroll. It gave the Fever something they haven't possessed in years: true financial freedom and the agility to maneuver in a competitive market. With Caitlin Clark single-handedly driving record-breaking ticket sales, merchandise revenue flying off the shelves, and national TV slots putting the franchise in front of millions, the front office understand the window to capitalize on this economic boom is terrifyingly short. Their new strategy is as simple as it is ruthless. Surround Clark with a fleet of low-cost, high-IQ players who perfectly fit the fast-paced, chaotic system she commands. They aren't trying to win the off-season headlines by signing the biggest, most expensive names. That's a fool's game that has crippled franchises for years. Instead, they are building a sustainable, agile roster, a perfectly tuned machine designed to maximize one player's unique and historic talent without being handcuffed by albatross contract for years to come. This is about value and fit over big names and flashy signings. They want shooters who don't need the ball to be effective, defenders who can switch on everything, and glue players who do the dirty work without demanding the spotlight. This was a cold-blooded business decision disguised as a basketball move, a calculated gamble that the sum of perfectly chosen parts would be far greater and far cheaper than a few overpaid stars. The Fever's internal revolution didn't happen in a vacuum. In fact, their dramatic roster teardown ignited a chain reaction that is currently destabilizing the entire WNBA, turning them from a team in rebuild mode to the league's most unpredictable power broker. The league is facing a perfect storm of change, a confluence of events that only happens once in a generation, and Indiana's front office, it appears, saw it coming from a mile away. The current collective bargaining agreement is set to expire, and this has created a wave of uncertainty across every team. This has led a vast number of players across the league to sign one-year deals, essentially betting on themselves, hoping for a more lucrative payday when the new financial rules are established. This means the 2026 free agency period will be unlike any other, a historic flood of available talent hitting the market all at once. On top of that, two new expansion teams, the Portland Fire and the Toronto Tempo, are preparing to join the league and will conduct an expansion draft. This process forces every existing team to make heartbreaking decisions about which players to protect and which to expose, potentially losing key contributors for nothing in return. Most franchises are facing this reality with dread, but the Fever's front office didn't just see chaos. They saw a golden opportunity. By making their aggressive cuts now, they position themselves as the most flexible, cap-rich team in a buyer's market, while other general managers are sweating over how to protect their roster from the expansion draft and how to re-sign their own players in a volatile market. Indiana has already done the hard part. They have cleared the deck. They aren't just rebuilding a roster. They are strategically exploiting a unique moment in league history to build a contender overnight. They have the money to outbid anyone for the free agents they want, and they have the roster spots to offer significant playing time. Other franchises, tied down by long-term contracts and limited cap space, can only watch and scramble. Indiana isn't just playing checkers. They're playing chess, thinking 3 moves ahead while everyone else is reacting to their bold opening. They just took half of the board in one move, and the rest of the league is only now realizing they've already fallen behind. So, in the wake of all this chaos, who is actually safe? The answer is both revealing and startling. The core of the new Fever is incredibly small, a testament to the sheer scale of this overhaul. The only 3 players guaranteed to return are all on their cost-controlled rookie contracts. Caitlin Clark, the face of the franchise, Aaliyah Boston, the rock in the paint, and the newly drafted standout, Michaela Timpson. These 3 represent the untouchable foundation, the non-negotiable pieces around which everything else will be constructed. Their youth talent and affordable contracts make them the pillars of the entire operation. Beyond that sacred trio, the front office has one monumental and frankly stressful priority: re-signing all-star guard Kelsey Mitchell. The team's chief operating officer and general manager Amber Cox has been explicitly clear, publicly stating the priority will be Kelsey Mitchell and making sure she remains in a Fever jersey. She is viewed as the essential veteran bridge, a scorer who has finally begun to find a devastating chemistry with Clark in the backcourt. However, even this is not the sure thing it might seem. Mitchell, who has been grieving profound loss of her father, has been publicly and understandably cautious. She has spoken about the need to take a step back and carefully consider what is truly best for her and her family's future, pointedly stopping short of making any commitment to return. This uncertainty hangs over the entire organization like a dark cloud. As for other key contributors from last season, the picture gets even murkier. Lexi Hull, who transformed into a vital, defensive-minded contributor down the stretch, is now a restricted free agent. The Fever can match any offer she receives, but her price tag just went up, and veterans like Odyssey Sims, who was signed and released multiple times on short-term contracts late in the season, face a deeply uncertain future. The front office may view them as temporary patches, not long-term solutions. The message emanating from the front office could not be clearer. Unless your name is Clark, Boston, or potentially Mitchell, your spot on the 2026 Indiana Fever is anything but guaranteed. Every other position is up for grabs, and the competition to fill them will be the story of the offseason. With the players gone and the money freed up, one burning question remains, looming over the entire franchise like a specter. What happens to head coach Stephanie White? This isn't just a sidebar to the story. It is a central, unresolved drama that will determine whether this bold gamble pays off or explodes in the front office's face. Despite the reported tension, the philosophical clashes, and the clear rejection of her system, as of today, she remains a head coach of the Indiana Fever. But to interpret that as a vote of confidence would be a catastrophic misreading of the situation. The reality is far more tense and unpredictable. The front office has made their move, a shocking display of power that demonstrated their willingness to absorb massive short-term criticism for their long-term vision. They have thrown down the gauntlet, and now the ball is irrevocably in her court. This is a defining moment of her tenure in Indiana, a professional crossroads that will shape her entire coaching legacy. The silence from the organization regarding her status is deafening. There's been no public statement of support, no vote of confidence from the general manager. This calculated quiet speaks volumes. It tells the world that her position is not secure. It is conditional. The question is no longer if the system must change, but whether she can be the one to change it. Can she, a coach who has built her career on structure, discipline, and a control playbook, fundamentally reinvent herself? Can she tear up the script she has spent years perfecting and embrace the chaotic, fluid, and almost instinctual fast-paced offense the front office is demanding to be built around Caitlin Clark? This isn't like learning a new play. It's about learning a new language of basketball, one where structure is replaced by flow and control is replaced by trust. It requires a monumental shift in mindset from being a puppeteer who directs every action to a gardener who creates the conditions for organic, explosive growth and then gets out of the way. Sources close to the coaching staff describe a woman grappling with an impossible choice. On one hand, there is her professional pride and deeply held basketball philosophy. She believes systems win championships, that discipline trumps talent, and that without a rigid framework, even the most gifted teams devolve into chaos. To abandon this now could feel like a betrayal of her own coaching identity. Yet, on the other hand, is the undeniable force of the franchise's new direction. The front office hasn't just hinted at what they want. They have burned the ships to ensure there is no going back. They have publicly committed to a read and react offense, a style that is the antithesis of her preferred method. For her to stay, she must not only adopt this new system, but become its most fervent evangelist of players, many of whom will be new and looking to her for direction. She must sell a vision she may not fully believe in, and that is a nearly impossible acting job to sustain. The pressure is being applied in subtle but unmistakable ways. Insiders hint that the front office has already begun quietly evaluating other coaching candidates, preparing a contingency plan should White prove unable or unwilling to adapt. Names of coaches with backgrounds in up-tempo, offensive-heavy systems are already circulating in league circles. This isn't necessarily a secret. In fact, the front office likely wants White to be aware of this. It's a form of professional pressure, a constant reminder that her seat is not just warm, it is scorching hot. Every meeting, every practice, every preseason game will be an audition. The executives will be watching not just the players, but her. They will be analyzing her play calling, her timeout management, her offensive sets, and most importantly, her willingness to hand the keys of the offense entirely to Caitlin Clark and let her drive without a detailed map. Furthermore, the front office's strategy has masterfully and perhaps ruthlessly boxed her in. By clearing the roster of so many veterans who were accustomed to her system, they have removed her potential allies on the court. The new players brought in will be chosen for one reason and one reason only: their ability to thrive in the very system she is being forced to adopt. These players will have no loyalty to the old way. Their success will be tied to the freedom they are given. If she reverts to her structure habits, it won't just frustrate Clark, it will confuse and alienate the entire new roster, leading to immediate underperformance and giving the front office all the justification they need to make a change. She will be leading a team built for Ferrari's engine, while trying to drive it like a tractor, and the resulting breakdown would be blamed squarely on her. The human element of this power struggle cannot be overstated. This is a personal and professional ordeal for Stephanie White. To acquiesce is to admit that her way was a problem, a brutal pill for any leader to swallow. Every time she allows Clark to take a heat check logo 3 early in the shot clock, it will be a small surrender. Every time she doesn't call a set play after a timeout and instead trust the players to create, it will be an act of faith and philosophy that goes against her instincts. The locker room, now fully aware of this dynamic, will be watching her every move for signs of hesitation or resentment. Players are hyperperceptive to a coach's belief in the system. If they sense she is just going through the motions, that her heart isn't in this new direction, the team's culture will fracture before the first tip-off. Her challenge is to project unwavering belief and confidence in the system. She may still be learning to trust herself. The 8 players who were let go were the first, most obvious casualties of this revolution. They were the sacrifice made to prove the front office's seriousness. But their departure also serves as a permanent, chilling reminder to the head coach. The message is clear. Sentimentality is dead. Legacy is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is results through a specific, mandated style of play. If the coach cannot or will not get in line with a new vision, she won't be far behind them. Her exit may be framed as a mutual decision or a philosophical difference, but the truth will be understood by everyone. The fate of the Fever's historic gamble doesn't just rest on the new players they will sign. It rests on the most fragile and unpredictable variable of all, the human capacity for change. It rests on whether the person leading them on the court is willing to not just accept, but to wholeheartedly lead a revolution she didn't start, one that was launched with her own job potentially on the line. The first game of the season will feel like a verdict. The Indiana Fever have done something no one saw coming. They've torn everything down not after a failed season, but after a successful playoff run. They bet all on a single simple idea, that the key to a championship is unleashing Caitlin Clark completely. This isn't a rebuild, it's a revolution. It's a high-stakes gamble where the front office has pushed all their chips to the center of the table. If this works, if the new signings fit, if the coach adapts, and if Clark becomes the unshackled force she was in college, the Indiana Fever won't just be a good team. They could become a dynasty that dominates the WNBA for a decade. But if it fails, if the chemistry is wrong, if the pressure crushes them, this will be remembered as one of the most desperate and catastrophic collapses in sports history. It's a story of power, money, and basketball, and we are all about to witness how it ends. What do you think? Was this a genius move or a franchise-crippling mistake? Let us know your take in the comments below. And for more shocking deep dives into the stories sports leagues don't want you to know, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss what we uncover next.